So welcome everybody. My name is Judy Gilmore, and
we can sit with her.
Gallery.
It's impossible, Judy.
For us, we've never done
Okay, we'll just go back there.
So we are hopeful that everyone will get to see a little bit of what's installed in the gallery. But the real purpose of this is to make sure that everyone knows that we are open and that you can come in and see the work in person, which of course is the preferred way to see the work. But we wanted to have a gathering because it's such an important part of any show, is to gather the artists, to celebrate the work that they've done, to really celebrate the work that went into the show, and to really, you know, come together as a community in support of the artists and the, you know, the vision of what we're doing and what everyone
joined the meeting.
So we're really excited to have you guys here tonight virtually. We're going to introduce our jurors for this process. This show came about through really kind of serendipity. We had a hole in our schedule because, as you know, everything started happening in the spring, many things got moved around, and we just decided that
joined the meeting.
Opportunity to really think about what artists were doing in response of this unprecedented moment. And we were excited to offer regional artists both a small stipend and an opportunity to put the work out there that they were doing. So we had a call for art. We did that in the spring. We put together a wonderful jury, and we had over 200 and our 4 jurors had a very hard time of narrowing that work down for the show. I really think we could have done 2 really great shows. There was that much. But I want to thank our jurors, and I'll introduce our jurors. So on the call tonight is Sharon Bates. Say hi, Sharon. Sharon is a visual artist and curator, and she was the founding director of the Albany International Airport and Culture Program. Airport Art and Culture Program, which has become a national model for public art. As an artist, Sharon Bates has exhibited site-specific installations and media work in Los Angeles, Miami, and throughout the Northeast. And in 2018, we actually did a solo exhibition of her work titled Sharon Bates Exhibit B. Her recent awards include a 2019 Skidmore Summer Studio Art Program. She was a visiting artist in residence there. She received a 2018 Elizabeth Murray Artist Residency through Collarworks, and in 2017, a Lillian Heller Artist Residency at Chester and Stockbridge. So welcome, Sharon. We're gonna have a chance to hear from her in just a minute. Also here tonight in the gallery with me are Julie Torres and Ellen Letcher, excuse me. And Ellen and Julie have been curating independently and together for the past 10 years. They met in 2010 at Famous Accountants, the New York gallery that Letcher co-founded in 2009, and they moved together to Hudson in 2016. They enjoy collaborating as both artists and curators, as well as making their own work and organizing their own projects. In 2018, Letcher and Torres took the reins at Lab Space in Hillsdale, founded by Susan Jennings. They are deeply engaged in the Hudson Valley, Berkshire, Capital Region, and Greater New York arts communities by connecting artists at Lab Space, attending area exhibitions and studios, exhibiting their own work, and guest curating in other spaces. Their projects have been featured in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Huffington Post, Hyperallergic, Brooklyn Rail, Chronogram, and 2 Coats of Paint. Their current show, Space Case at Lab Space. I don't know if that's true anymore, but we can ask them. I do know they have a current show at Collarworks, and they can talk a little bit about that as well. Lastly, but of course not least, is Stacey Robinson, who can't join us right now, but hopefully will be able to dial in around 7:30. Stacey is a visual artist and assistant professor of graphic design at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. As an Arthur Stromberg Fellow, he completed his Master of Fine Art at the University of Buffalo. He was a 2019-2020 Nazar Jones Hip Hop Fellow at the Hutchins Center for African and African American Research at Harvard University, where he researched hip hop's multimodal performance practice as activism. His multimedia work discusses ideas of Black utopias, colonized spaces of peace by considering Black, affluent, self-sustaining communities, Black protest movements, and the arts that document. We have shown Stacey's work. He's become a great friend of our galleries, and he's also from Albany, New York. So even though he's in Illinois, we still consider him local. So these wonderful had the very hard task of selecting work for the show. And before we hear from them about kind of what that process was like, we're going to do a quick walkthrough of our show with a video. So please bear with us as we do this kind of awkward and very lo-fi, low-tech video that's going to give you an idea of what the show looks like. And as we walk through this together, I'm going to introduce some of the artists' work. So first, as you come in the gallery, you're going to see a ceramic piece by the artist Erika Aberg. This is called COVID Trap. Another large sculptural piece greets you, and this is by the artist Hannah Washburn. Again, please feel free to ask questions about any piece. We have a very large site-specific chalk drawing by Richard Barlow. We have a trio of small paintings by the artist Pauline Decarmo. Two large drawings by the artist Sara, Farrell, Okamura. Two large drawings by Titania Kellner, one here and one you'll see later. This is entitled Protest. I have 5 oil paintings by Roger Patrick. Some photographs by Ray Felix. A large sculpture by Courtney Puckett. You get a little peek of the back of the gallery. The large wall piece is by Deborah Zlotsky. We have 7 drawings by Judith Braun. We have 4 books, handmade books by Tatiana Potts. They're made from different packages of food and other kind of kitchen items with handmade papers, hand-dyed papers. We have 3 ceramic bowls by Stephen Earp. We have another ceramic piece by Erika Aberg entitled The Colony. We have photographs installed by Christina Tenaglia, excuse me, and 5 sculptures by Andrea Hirsch. I hope you are all having your wine and cheese as we're doing this tour. Next to Christina, we have 5 drawings by Adrienne Mraz and a wall sculpture by Hannah Washburn. We have some cast iron pieces by Rebecca Flis. Four large digital prints by Andrew Jackson, who goes by the street artist name of Bugsdale. And 3 paintings by Pierre Desir entitled The Poet Crucified. We have 3 mixed media pieces. I'm sorry, the artist there was Carla Dortic, excuse me, and a textile piece by Cyndy Barbone. Some details of her piece. And then other large drawing by Titania Kellner. This one's entitled, and 2 drawings by Peg Foley.
Are you in here?
We have a large installation, sculpture installed by Fernando Orellano. This is 16 feet long and has small scenes throughout it. This is entitled Inferno.
Dante's Inferno.
And here you can get a better look at Deborah Zlotsky's textile painting, textile wall piece. And a nice installation by Nathan Meltz. It's screen printed on dot matrix paper. And 3 illustrations by Fernando Orellano. And an installation by Jamie Ricardo Rodriguez entitled Ping Pong Diplomacy. We have a lovely sculpture by Hui Li. And some wall sculptures by Beth Caspar. And paintings by Ever Baldwin. And last but certainly not least, an oil painting by Jeff Wigman. So I will stop this for just a moment and then I will let it run in the background. Again, we're so excited to showcase this work, and it's an awkward way, but I want to introduce it and let the jurors each speak a little bit about the process, how the work was selected, and of course, after that, take some of your questions. So let's start with Julie and Ellen, who are in the gallery with me now. Julie and Ellen, would you guys like to say a little bit about the show, talk about any pieces that really spoke to you, and just about the process?
Can you guys hear us? I can. It was a really intense process, I think, for all of us, because the work that came in was incredible and so many submissions. You can see Beth Caspar behind us and Hugh Lee sculpture behind us. We actually connected with Hugh after the submission process and put her in the Colorwork sculpture show that we just put together. So that was really exciting to meet a new sculptor in the area. And we were introduced to a lot of new work, actually, which was super exciting. And what else? Do you want to say something?
It was a really great process going through it, but it was a lot of hard choices. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, so many artists that we absolutely love, that we've shown before, whose work we're so into, we actually couldn't include. There's just too many. So that part was hard, but then the end result is so beautiful. We're so glad that we're here. It's great to see in real life. I hope a lot of people can come see it. It's actually,
we're just seeing it for the first time in real life.
It's a gorgeous show.
Beautiful.
Thank you, guys. Is there any work that really surprised you or that you want to talk about, you know, seeing now in person that was different than what you expected when you selected it digitally? Oh, I actually muted you guys. Sorry. Can you unmute?
Did you just ask? We have been trying to unmute ourselves that entire time, or remute ourselves. I'm not sure. Did you ask about work that looks different in person?
Well, I'm just wondering if anything really spoke to you guys, or, you know, as you were really going through both the selection or being in here now, like work that really, really spoke to you that you were surprised about.
We cannot hear you. It's just a muffly echo because we are in the same gallery space, and you know. So
I think what she said is it different seeing it in person?
Is that what
something to that effect?
Yes, that's what I asked. Maybe
okay.
Let's move on to Sharon, and we'll have Sharon introduce herself. Say hi. and talk a little bit about her involvement in the process. Thanks, guys.
Do I need to
I don't know.
Sharon, you're muted. There you go.
I'm muted.
Thank you. Now we can hear you. Nope, you're still muted.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Now we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. It was a great process. It was a very interesting way to jury, all virtually. And also a lot of us didn't know each other, and we didn't know, there was a lot of work that was new to me. But I would say it was really an incredible, not only to select the work, but to read all of the statements of the artists that were provided. I mean, what was such kind of like compelling and really poignant stories about what they were experiencing. And a lot of, as I said, a lot of the artists I was unfamiliar with. So it was great to really be introduced to so much new work, but the breadth of the work was really, really compelling, and it was difficult to make the final selections. I think we certainly could have shown, you know, 3 times more of the artist's work if we had the space and you know, the resources. But it was great process. I haven't done a lot of jurying with other jurors, so it was great to kind of get everyone else's views and perspective about the work and insights about the work. And then kind of like, you know, not that we duked it out, but just at the end to really advocate for certain works that we thought were really compelling. So it was a really interesting process for me as a curator. And it was really, you know, because I've been very isolated, as everyone else has, to connect with these other curators, and also to make contact and learn of everyone else's experiences as well during this time.
That's great. Thank you, Sharon.
Yeah.
Stacey was able to join us. So hi, Stacey. How are you?
Hi, I'm so glad I made it on time.
Yeah, we're so glad. We did introduce you. But same
Okay.
question to you, Stacey. You want to talk a little bit about the show and kind of what struck you from the submissions and the experience of jurying this work?
Sure, definitely. You know, first of all, I don't live in Albany anymore, but Albany is my hometown. So it is, I look forward to doing an event, somehow keeping my footprint active in the Albany Capital District community every year. So this was one of the only things I could really do this year. And it was an amazing event to be able to jury this, to co-jury this, shouting out my curatorial team and my co-jurors. This was a really fun, active series of Zoom meetings. And I can't say which ones stand out to me the most. I don't know if I could say that. I can say though, this challenged my thinking on curation. This definitely challenged my thinking on that, because there were some pieces that I fell in love with. There are pieces I didn't necessarily like that much, but to hear the other jurors speak on and advocate for pieces, or not to feel the same way about certain pieces, really challenged me to think differently. And I think that's what I walked away with, to have a very open mind in reference to how to think about art. Especially, and one of the other things I really enjoyed about this is that it was an opportunity to help artists get paid during the pandemic, off of their talent, their skill set, and everything. So this was, I took this very, very seriously. This year was one of my favorite things to do. Co-jurying this event was one of my favorite activities this year. And I'm saying that just returning from a Harvard residency, right?
We like to hear that. That's great.
So yeah, this was awesome. I just want to thank everyone. I appreciate everyone in the show. Thank you for the opportunity for me to be able to come back and be active in my hometown. And it's good to see everyone. Many faces I haven't seen in the last, I don't know, month and a half or so. So good to see you all.
You too. Thank you, Stacey. We really appreciate it. You still get the award for the best Zoom background I've seen since all of this. So well done, Stacey. No, we really appreciate that. And I think for folks who haven't seen the show, I want to really underscore that we are open. You can come and see the work. We're open 12 to 5 Tuesdays through Saturdays and 12 to 8 on Thursdays. So please come in person. The work is just so much better, of course, in person. And just to give you an idea of the kind of stuff that you will see, we really had a few themes that we saw throughout the submissions. One, as you could expect, artists were just interested in kind of the artifacts of the moment, the things that we are all paying attention to, the shape of this weird virus, the masks, the kind of things that have more weight now that we're living through this time. So there was some of a lot of that, and you'll see that in the show. We have artists who really took the time that they had while they were in quarantine or why they were in their studios so much to really dive into projects in a new way, to completely teach themselves new skills, to work in new mediums. We had a lot of artists who really used the restraint of not being able to access the normal materials or tools that they would have to really kind of reinvent their processes. I think the jurors, we all found that very interesting when artists really took the moment to really kind of take a detour in their practice, and we saw a lot of that. We also saw kind of a group of work, not surprisingly, about the kind of social injustices that have become so glaring and the real kind of powerful movements that have sprung up. And so we saw a lot of work that really had to do with that, and just the kind of anxiety of the political anxiety and the kind of social anxiety really bubbled up through all of the work, or through a lot of the work. And we also saw a lot of artists who really just dove into their practices as an escape, to really get away from the stress and the anxiety, and to really remembered or kind of took to heart kind of what their art practice has always meant to them, as a way of, getting closer to nature, getting into their hands, into the process of making things. And so those are kind of some of the major themes that you might see if you were to come and visit the show. So with that kind of general description, and you've heard from our jurors, we'd love to open it up for questions. If anyone has a question, if you could chat it to us, we'll try to find you and unmute you, and we'll try to have a short conversation, see if that's possible. So please use the chat function. While you are thinking of questions, I would love to turn it back to the jurors and ask you, as you, in hindsight, look back at the work that was selected, were you surprised by any kind of groupings of work or anything that you saw that you hadn't thought maybe you would see in so many submissions?
In the gallery, or
no, by the submissions that we saw, like, were you surprised that artists, did something that you hadn't expected, or artists that who might have done something differently?
Well, I thought it was really interesting to see the breadth of, the different types of responses and the materials that people were using. I mean, I think it was great to see artists who were using materials that they hadn't used in the past, things that were available, things that were inexpensive. Many artists were unable to be in their studio spaces. So, they're working on the kitchen table, or they're working with other family members in the other room. And so I think, and kind of like everybody was a little bit in shock. And I think it was evident in the kind of responses that came through. And I'm sorry, but I'm missing the name of the artist who was a painter, who normally had done more, he said, socially, more political based work, or social active active work, but was now working with paintings and materials and subject matter that was more banal for him, you know, things. I'm sorry, it escaped me his name, but he's in the show, right? Or
It's not ringing a bell to me, but I do
okay.
remember reading that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was interesting to see how people gravitated towards making work that actually was not only an opportunity for them to make work, but for them to kind of deal with what they were going through and keep themselves kind of sane, and take this time to really reflect on, you know, because in March we really didn't know how long this was going to last, and we thought this was going to be, you know, a few weeks and then we'll be through it. You know, of course it was supposed to go away in 15 days, and obviously it hasn't. So it was just really, I think it was really poignant and profound, you know, just for us as jurors to have this insight into what so many artists were going through and dealing with. Not so much anything. And I really think the show hangs well. This is my first time seeing it on video. You know, I'm always surprised how other people install exhibitions, because I'm so used to, you know, I almost, when I look at work, I think about how I would install it. So I think it hangs well together, and it's great to see it in 3-dimension. I mean, when you look at work that's, you know, in a slide form or digital form, you get only a certain sense of it. So to see it installed in the gallery really kind of makes it much more kind of compelling. And so, yeah, I'm looking at all the images that are flashing by in the background. So I think it looks good. And, you know, as I say, it's challenging to jury with 3 other people and to come to a consensus. But I think it was hard. It was really hard because there was so much more work that all of us really would have liked to have included.
Yeah. Great. Then thank you, Sharon. Another question kind of for the jurors, and we do have artists here. So if there's certain pieces you want to hear about, and people are putting that in the chat, so we will do that. But if there's a certain piece you want to hear about and the artist is present, we will ask the artist. But before we go to the artist, maybe a question to the other jurors. Did the wide variety of media make it difficult to choose items? Stacey or Julie and Ellen, do you guys have any thoughts about that?
Unless they're ready to answer, I will jump in.
Yeah, please do.
I think, you know, what was interesting, I think the hard part for me was getting away from my preferred aesthetic, right? Stepping away from that to have wider conversations. And there's so much of what Sharon already said. One of the things that I really enjoyed was that during this time, artists jumped into their work, and many of them tried a new approach to art making. And I think that's very important and I didn't know that, right? So many of these artists, most of these artists I didn't know. So to know that they were trying something new actually made me appreciate the work more. Right? Because that's daring, that's challenging. A lot of people would not do that. A lot of people would actually go to what is very comfortable. But I think the thing that I enjoyed about it the most was that so many artists were diving into their work and then diving into something that was new and different. And I think this art, you know, speaks to healing in a particular way that a lot of times we might not necessarily talk about enough. And in this time where most of us are isolated from our loved ones in particular ways, and there is at some level an infinite uncertainty, that artists are in a very particular way kind of leading the charge and commentary and healing and keeping all of us sane in a particular way. So even though I didn't know most of these artists and their works, what the rest of my co-jurors, what the rest of the team did was bring a particular narrative to the conversation that made a much more well-rounded type of experience. And this is a great looking show. This is the first time I'm seeing it all in the space. And before that, we could only imagine what it would look like. And Judy, you were saying things like, oh, I imagine it on this wall and this piece group with this piece and these two pieces or these three pieces would converse. But to actually see it in the space is very, very different than what we looked at on the slides and what we read in the artist statement. So I don't know if that addresses it, but or answers the question, but this is definitely how I was thinking about the work. And I'm just happy to be here experiencing this with you all.
Thanks, Stacey. Appreciate it. We got some feedback that the video is really fast, so we're going to slow that down. It's a little choppy. I think the quality of sharing is not ideal, but we'll do our best. And I'm so sorry. I got a message from one of the artists in the show, Donnabelle Casis, whose work was not highlighted in the video. So maybe Julie and Ellen, who are in the gallery, could actually showcase Donnabelle's work, which is right around the corner from you guys on the end wall. Yeah, sorry, we're trying all this technology out for the first time. So thank you for bearing with us. We're going to talk to the artists now. Thank you for Juris for talking to us. And we have a couple requests. Richard Barlow, would you be interested in talking about your chalk drawing? We have someone who would like to hear a little bit about that piece.
Sure. So, I mean, the question was specifically about the process of making it. And I guess I'll split that into two parts, the sort of physical process and conceptual process. So physically, I've made a bunch of these chalk wall drawings lately. And what I do is have the wall covered in a custom blackboard paint that I have made through golden acrylics. And then using just Crayola brand dust-free chalk, I draw the image directly on the wall. I use a projector to guide me as I do that. And one of the things I found when I first did one of these drawings was that the roller texture of the wall is unavoidable. And that's actually kind of a great thing because I sort of ride the texture and it creates something like film grain. It creates almost a stippling. It's impossible to make an unbroken line. And so I kind of work with that to get this, you know, somewhat photographic or lithographic kind of effect. As far as the process of any given piece, I always want to know the dimensions of the wall and so on. These are site specific. They're made directly on the wall. And in this case, you know, I was thinking a little bit about the title of the show as I came up with the imagery as well. And it sort of triggered something for me because I had for a while been driving nearby where I live through the Catskills. At one point, I kept noticing driving back from Hudson to Oneonta, this distinctive looking mountain. And I realized it looked really familiar and then came to figure out that it's the mountain in the background of Thomas Cole's Course of Empire series, which is a series of paintings about a sort of fictitious rise and fall of an empire that was analogous to his cynicism and anxiety about American empire in the 1830s. And so I had wanted to do something with that. And so in this case, I went to this site. It's called Vroman's Nose, the mountain, and took photographs of the mountain and of the site, of trees nearby. The kind of framing tree we see here is something that I found in a graveyard overlooking Middleborough, which had a view of the mountain. And then I took like 20 or 30 of my photos and collaged them together in Photoshop to make what I thought was sort of a 19th century feeling kind of composition that would fit the wall. And then I've executed. The difference with this drawing compared to any other I've done so far, and I don't think I've reinvented my process as much as many people in the show apparently did, but I decided to take this opportunity to try something new, which is that I'm going to go back and degrade the image over the course of the run of the exhibition. So I've often seen these drawings as they're being erased at the end of the show. They all get erased and disappear, and interesting, chaotic, destructive things happen. And I'm going to see if I can make that part of the drawing process over the course of the show. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you, Richard. That's wonderful. And we're going to be documenting that process as well. So we invite you to come in, but please also, join us on Instagram, and we'll be showcasing some of that as well, because it's very exciting to see. Judith Braun, someone has requested to hear about your pieces. Would you be willing to talk?
Unmute.
Okay. Oh, there she is.
Okay.
Hi,
I don't
Judith.
think I have a picture up though. Is
I
there a
will.
picture?
I will get us there.
No, but I don't think my picture shows.
Oh yeah, your video is not
Yeah,
on.
I don't know. That's just something in my Zoom today. It didn't work, but
Well, we can hear you great.
okay. Okay, so there's my work. So what was the question? Was there a specific question?
Just that someone wanted to hear about these drawings.
Okay. Well, these drawings are really similar to what I do anyway. I do symmetrical pencil drawings. And so during the pandemic, I just sat down at my desk and started drawing. And I think I was glad that I had these little rules that I draw symmetrical drawings with pencil, because if I didn't have that, I don't know what I really would have done. I was feeling really at a loss. So I just started working with this small paper and a sort of a 12-inch square size and a circle. And really, they just, one thing led to another. I didn't have a plan or a guide of any kind. I just started drawing. I may have guided the circles. I don't make them totally by hand, but so they're really not specifically about anything, to do with the pandemic. But I guess, it's hard to say that they don't reflect that in some way, except that if you looked at my work over the last, 10 years, they could easily just fit in the same category of circles and patterns and symmetry. So, that's really, I can't explain them further. I think I work till I'm interested in what I'm seeing. Like if I'm working on something and, sort of just a surprise happens, something I think, oh, like the one up in the upper left corner. To me, I just was making the ring of circles. And then when I put the darker area in, it became like a sort of a separate layer, like there was a ring of a black sort of donut ring behind it. I don't know. I thought it was just a kind of an interesting perceptual moment. So I captured it and held on to it. And I think that's what I'm after, is like just surprise perception, out of all the millions of things that you could be looking at all the time. I just want to be able to kind of get my attention somewhere and say, oh, that's something I never saw before. Or, oh, look how that looks. So I guess all of them for me have things like that, that can be seen sometimes depending on the light. Like the one in the very center, sometimes I see the white sort of balls that are going around the outside as dominant, and sometimes I see the black with the kind of hairy extensions as the dominant. And that sort of back and forth to me is what's interesting. It's just looking at things and finding that that surprise of not unexpected moments. So that's
great,
what I do anyway, even during the pandemic.
That's great. Thank you for sharing, Judith. Pierre, Desir, would you like to talk a little bit about your work? We've had several people who'd like to hear more about your work, Pierre. I know you were on earlier. Are you still here?
Unmuted, Pierre. Lower left corner.
Yes, I'm still here.
Hi, Pierre.
Hi.
Are you going to put my pictures up, or do
Yep,
I have
I'm working on it.
to talk from memory? All right. This is a series of paintings that grew out of basically some work I did for the filmmaker Billy Woodbury. He did a documentary on the poet Bob Kaufman. And for 5 years, we traveled around the country finding people that knew the poet, and he questioned them and I filmed it. And in doing that, I got to learn a great deal about Robert Kaufman. Robert Kaufman was a mixed race African-American from Louisiana, from New Orleans. And he was originally a merchant marine. And then he got blacklisted when the government basically took over the Union and kicked out all the left-wing people. And he went to San Francisco and became a poet. He was one of the first beat poets. And these paintings depict a particular incident when he was arrested in the Coexistence Bagel Shop. He was not an angel, so he may have been making trouble. And, but anyway, I saw a very poorly exposed, out of focus photograph of this event. And these paintings grew out of that photograph. It's black and white, doesn't look at anything like this. And I include the text from a poem that he wrote called The Ancient Rain. And that particular title just fascinated me, and I studied about the rain, about water. And actually water may be older than the earth, but that's a long story. The larger painting, the oil painting, is simply a depiction of the scene. The other two, I have incorporated images from Native American and Mexican and other art into the happening. And also I have placed on the police these images of demons, because I feel these oppressors are also not demons themselves, but they are possessed by demons. To go home after treating people this way, I'm sure they have to suffer. If they're not, they're psychopathic. Also, on one of the officers, there is a depiction of an electroshock machine, because Kaufman was given a grant, I forget by whom, damn. But anyway, he came to New York and to Harvard, and when he was in New York, one day he was walking across the lawn in Washington Square Park, and he was arrested. And he was brought to Bellevue Hospital, where he was, he endured several sessions of electroshock. I don't think he ever recovered. This is something that, this is an image or a subject that I plan to study some more, because of the criminal justice system and its oppression of the Black artist. And I plan, I'm working on another one on Thelonious Monk, Billie Holiday, Miles Davis, but I think I'll also do one on Lenny Bruce, because he also went through some shit as well. So I don't know what else I can say about this. I think the title of the film, which has been finished, and I wish I had a link that I could send you to, it's called Bob Kaufman, When I Die, I Won't Stay Dead, which is something that he said. He's also credited with coining the phrase beatnik. He was one of the beat poets, but nobody knows about him. They know about Ginsberg and Ferlinghetti and whatnot, but not about Kaufman. Which is the same. Yeah, actually, he was first published by the French, which is something that Black American artists often have to do, go to France to get recognized. So.
Well, thank you, Pierre. That's wonderful. We really appreciate you speaking about the work, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. Another request to hear about Cyndy Barbone's work. Cyndy, are you on the line?
I am, yes.
Great. Would you like to talk about your work? Let me see if I can find it in the video. There we go.
Great. As the pandemic and the shutdown was kind of going on and on and on, I had finished up a body of work, which is actually going to be in the Mohawk Hudson, of my nieces who are healthcare workers. But when I finished that, I really wanted to deal with the numbers of COVID deaths in New York State because they kept rising, and I had some ideas of how I would do it, but then I thought, you know, I am a weaver, and because these patterns in overshot, which is a very traditional weave structure, they came to the US by immigrants in the early 1800s, and it was home weavers that really developed these patterns and made them their own. And I thought, wow, there's rose motifs in these patterns. So it just seemed like a great way to like document all the deaths of New York State by day and weave them. And I sort of, as I'm doing it, I don't do production weaving. So it's very strenuous on your body. So I felt in a way like a healthcare worker. I wanted to get this done, and it was just on and on and on. And here I'm only up to April 3rd. So I haven't even hit like when the death numbers per day were in the thousands or high, you know, 800s and 900s. So I do have a lot of work ahead of me, but I just also wanted to just see what that number was in a visual form, because we're getting immune to the numbers, and these are really lives lost to this pandemic. And even in New York State, I mean, we're almost at 33,000. So.
Well, thank you, Cyndy. It's a wonderful piece. Wonderful piece, and we really appreciate you sharing. Thank you. Anthony Jackson, are you around? Could you talk about your work? No, Anthony's not here. What about Rebecca Flis? Rebecca, are you on?
Hi, yeah, I'm right here.
Oh, great. Let's see, we'll find your work. Excuse me, guys. Here we go. You have these wonderful cast iron pieces, and several people asked you to talk about these.
Was there anything in particular, or just about the process, or?
I think both. What you had in mind and what your process was like.
Yeah. So I primarily work in like cast materials, and my MFA thesis show, I worked a lot with materials that sort of degraded over time. And this is sort of like, in my mind, the opposite of that. When I was thinking about the pandemic, I had this thought like, oh, you were using all of these personal protective gear, and where's it going? Because a lot of it is single use. And I often, even just going to like the grocery store, would see used gloves like just like on the ground in the parking lot, and really got me thinking about the environment. And often I try to use casting as a way to change the material. It's a literal transformation, but also it's a physical transformation, and it goes through this chemical transformation. And thinking about these as artifacts, like what would happen to all of this PPE that is just getting thrown in the ground? Like if something was dug up, you know, years from now, like how would they look back at 2020? And like, what if these were fossils or solidified or something, and thinking about how they might be displayed, you know, in a museum or something. And I was actually able to cast these in July. So sort of like in the midst of the pandemic, we had like a very, very safe, socially distanced session. And it was actually the only cast iron session that like was happening across the entire country, because most of it happens at schools and all the schools were closed. So it was sort of a weird, isolated experience, even though as a group of people together, we all sort of were 10 feet apart. But I really, in my mind, view them as like artifacts, like looking back from the future. So
Wonderful. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
They're great pieces in person too. Fernando Oriano, we have a couple people who'd love to hear about your work. Fernando has 2 pieces in the show. But Fernando, would you like to talk about your work as I find it?
Hello, am I on video? I turned it on and I don't know if I am or not. Hello.
I can't tell, but I'll look in a minute. Let me get you on your piece here.
I don't know if it matters if I'm on the video or not. Hi, so welcome, hello TV land. This piece which one are you gonna start with, Judy?
Let's start with the big one.
Okay, first, thank you, Judy, and all the curators for your Zoom work. It must have been surreal, to say the least, to look at work this way. And it must have also been fun because, what are we doing? It's watching Netflix.
Absolutely.
This piece called Infernia is, full disclosure, it actually started a year ago. And I honestly didn't know why I was making it. I just had sort of a vision of it, and I was really inspired by the Divine Comedy, like the whole poem. I've been reading it, and the Inferno part of it had sort of like really stuck, and mostly probably because my wife and I, Mindy, had moved into suburbia, and also the section of the country that really made a difference in the election was suburbia. So as I went from South Troy to suburbia, I went through sort of like, I don't know, a cultural change, jet lag, I guess. And as we walked around, I thought, this is not only a utopia, but also a dystopia. And so I started making cantos, which are the poem parts of the Inferno. I started making my own versions of them using suburban iconography. And I did it for, a whole summer and then into the fall. And I really just didn't know why I was doing it. I think some people were like, do you hate suburbia? And I was like, no, actually it's the opposite. I love suburbia. It's like one of the best things that's ever happened to me, having lived in cities all my life, except for like when I was a kid. It was sort of like coming home. So I just kept making them and kept making them. I got all the way up until the gates of hell, when the only time an actual angel shows up in Inferno, allows Dante and Virgil to walk through the gates of hell. So that's the last little platform with the tree, which signifies that they're on the other side of one of the levels. Like from that point on, the sins get really bad. So what you see here is just a bunch of like layers of hell. Everything was 3D printed, so all of it was virtually made. But what I wanted to sort of get to is that when the pandemic started, this piece suddenly became much more, important for me because there's no people here. It's like everything was dropped, like the middle of a party, everybody left, sort of like that movie Leftovers. And that's really how sorry, not the movie, but the show Leftovers. That's really how it felt when it all went down. At Union College, we went from the term ending to everyone leave campus immediately. And after 2 months of being away, I finally was able to go back, and I saw like, it was one of the most surreal experiences I've ever had, really, where it looked like students had been working and they left their pencils and paper and projects they were working on and just disappeared. So this piece, Infernia, became palpably in my world. Like, and so it's sort of this community center for the dead. That's how I see it. Like, the ground floor is a hospice. It's actually a reference to another artwork that I made years ago called Confluence. And that's where you wake up when you die. And then from there, you have to figure out where you are. And if you can figure out that when you're dead, you can, like, gravity's not a problem, then you might make it to the second level, which is, to me, like the orientation level. And that's, if you come to the gallery, you'll see that there's like 2 chairs. That's orientation. And that's where the Virgil sort of meets with Dante, and he tells him, okay, well, we're gonna go for a walk. And then from there, the soul can go to different places in this sort of like architectural wonderland, depending on where they're actually supposed to be. The River Styx is here as well. And when you do visit the gallery, which I hope you all do, because this is just sort of a facsimile of all of our work. You'll see that there's like these little stations, little scenes where no people are there, but they represent the sort of like sins and demons that the dead might have encountered. Like this one right here is for the blasphemous. And so in this little horrible party that they were playing croquet, but the end goal was, the nativity scene. And there's liquor everywhere in all the scenes. So everyone was sloshed and wasted. And again, actually that was an interesting coincidence in relation to the pandemic, because one of the industries that exploded during the pandemic was liquor. Like drinking, right? Everyone drank, be great, exactly. Cheers, Sharon. It was a way of escape, a way of a state change, as one of my friends has talked about. So that there's liquor everywhere. There's, these different little scenes that represent our sort of psychological traumas and perhaps sins. And it really isn't quite finished. My goal is to like do the entire poem. So this is Infernia, or the Inferno. The next one's going to be Purgatorio, which is purgatory. And then finally it'll be heaven. So that's the Divine Comedy walks you through the whole thing. So I'm really happy that Opalka Gallery and the curators allowed me to put this up, because I had it sitting in boxes waiting to be shown. And I'm so happy to actually show it locally, because I never really get an opportunity to do that. So actually now we never get an opportunity to show in general. So it was really an honor to be included in the show, and thank you so much for all of you. And then Judy, if you want to show the other 3 pieces, I'll shut up. These 3 pieces are 100% made during the pandemic, and obviously they're inspired by the cult of Trump. They're my way of dealing with this sort of like runaway train that we seem to be all on, and half of the country is trying to get off, and half the country is paying more tickets to stay on. And it was actually drawn specifically for Instagram, because now that the pandemic is in full force and the art world is re-evaluating itself, redesigning itself, rebirthing itself temporarily, I figured that Instagram would be really the venue to show work. So I made these for Instagram right before the rally that our dear president did in Tulsa. And so, we've got Karen and, maybe Kevin over there. And then the Trump Lord in his basement. And they're deformed and sort of like post-apocalyptic, wearing their masks, but also not wearing them because they're trying to be ideological to their cause, but yet they're afraid. They're taking their temperature. They're both heroic and also, devilish, I guess, or disastrous or morph. So that's my spiel.
Thank you, Fernando.
Yep.
We really appreciate it. And yeah, the pieces are both great in person. So thank you very much.
Please visit the gallery.
Yes, please visit the gallery. Right now, I'm going to stop the very choppy video, and I'm going to let my colleague Amy share 3 pieces that were in this show that didn't get highlighted great in the video. And I'd like to make sure that those make it as well. So Amy is going to share her screen. We have a nice painting by Audrey Francis. This was a very charming painting by Audrey. Audrey, are you on? Would you like to say anything about this? No? Okay. Another piece that is not in the gallery but was installed outdoors is a piece by Norm Magnuson. And Norm has been doing a series of signs, historic signs for quite a while. And this was one he made in response to the pandemic. And so this is outside on the gallery. Outside of the gallery on the street on New Scotland. Now we are very close to Albany Med, so we have many healthcare workers who walk by this, and it's been so fun to watch out of my office window as people encounter this sign, and I think it really has been a wonderful addition to the show. So this is right outside. Norm, are you on? Do you want to say anything about this piece, Norm?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I don't know what to say about it. It's, it's interesting to see how people respond to this, as you mentioned. And on Instagram and Facebook and stuff, there's all kinds of threads, some Albany-centric Facebook groups where the discussion is really, really lively. And for me, as a creator of art, it's really a blast to watch a lively discussion sort of pop up surrounding one of my pieces.
Yeah, it's been great. And I think, if I can say a little more, Norm's piece has started a conversation about who's been left off of this sign. But it has been very fascinating because there are so many workers who are essential. So kind of how that was defined, I think, is really interesting to people. So it's been a great piece. Thank you, Norm. Yeah, and last, certainly not least, Donnabelle Casis has a group of lovely paintings. Donnabelle, would you like to talk about your work?
Oh, hi, thanks. Yeah, so these are sort of, it took me a while to get back into the studio, and it was sort of daunting trying to start something new. I've been working with gouache on panels, and they're about 40 by 32 inches, and so starting anything new, especially something big, was just too overwhelming. So I started to work on collages, and these are sort of combinations of marbled paper I'd made last year. I just was sort of experimenting with patterns and trying to make more organic patterns, and I made a huge pile of marbled paper that just sort of sat in my studio. I never did anything with it. And I also had a huge stack of drawings that sort of never became or got to a point where I felt like they were doing anything. So, having this time in the studio, trying to figure out what to do, I sort of combined the collages with the marbled paper and the unfinished drawings, and sort of came up with these, which were, to me, kind of related to my other work, but definitely a lot more surprising because the juxtapositions wouldn't be something I would normally do. So it was exciting.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. So this kind of concludes our talk. I'm sorry that I can't have everyone speak, but we want to keep it close to an hour as promised. But really, it was just to whet your appetites. We really hope you will come in to the gallery. I want to thank my staff, Amy Griffin, Natasha Holmes. We have a wonderful grad assistant, Rajvi Seth, as well as an alumni who just graduated, Madison Shishi. And I want to thank them all for coming in, coming back to work was hard for everyone, but we really had a lot of fun and installed the show in a safe way. So thank you to all of those folks. And I want to thank the college. We have several board members joining tonight, including Chet Opalka and Ronnie Shamam. I want to say thank you to President Ames from Russell Sage College for allowing us to open. We are one of the only academic galleries that is open to the public this semester in the region, and it's because they really value what we're doing here and what we offer to the community, both the neighborhood, the city, as well as the community of artists. So thank you for allowing us to open. It is a real honor to get to showcase this work. I do hope that you will come in and see it. You can visit our website, opalka.sage.edu, for our hours. And we are allowed to have up to 20 people in the gallery at any time, safely, of course, with masks. So if you want to bring a small group, please invite them and reach out to us. If you want us to have a tour and walk you through the work, we would love to do that. So feel free to always reach out to us if you'd like a private tour. We are here to showcase this work and to really allow people to see it and understand it. So whatever we can do to make that happen, please do that. If you're not on our mailing list, please use the chat function. You can put your email or your street address in, and you can join our mailing list. We do hope to have other programs associated with this show. So please stay up to date through our various channels, and we will let you know what else is coming. But more than anything, keep creating and hopefully keep supporting the artists in our region. All of this work is for sale, and we will be posting a website online soon where you can see prices and can purchase this work. We are going to be splitting it 60-40. 60% of the sales price will go to the artists, and we're really hoping that people will step up and support artists through purchasing some of the work that's in the show. And go to their websites. Please visit these artists' websites and their Instagram accounts. What you can be doing right now to support artists is to share their work, to buy their work, and to really help make sure that it gets seen. Artists are doing really important work, making sense of this time. We're so excited to have this show in this space, but we really want to be a part of supporting the ecosystem of artists in our region. So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you to the artists who showed up, as well as to our jurors who had the very hard job of selecting this work. And have a wonderful night, everyone. Stay safe, and we hope we will see you in person very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Judy. Thanks, Judy. Amy, Natasha, the whole staff of the gallery, all of the artists, the jurors, everyone who put so much effort into this. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Chet. Couldn't do it without you.
Thank you, guys. It's Pauline. Sorry, I just joined. I've been watching all along, but thank you for having me and for being in the show. I'm super excited.
Thank you, Pauline.
Wow. It's a beautiful night here in Hudson. See the moon? Okay, guys. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, Judy. Good night.